Hello class, today we are still working on solving rational equations. Rational equations, I can't say it looks like this because it looks different for different types of problems. We looked at having the equivalent fractions. We've looked at the square root problems, and we're going to take a look at square root again. This time we're going up to cubed root. So you're learning intention. I'm learning to solve rational equations and state the constraints and or restrictions. So pause the video. You have two warm-up problems. Pause the video and see if you can do them on your own. Well, I hope you tried. If you were able to complete them and got the answer correct, then you know you are understanding this concept. So I'm looking at the cubed root of the quantity 5x plus 2 is equal to 3. Once again, how do I get rid of that cubed root? The opposite is to cube both sides. Okay, the cube root is gone. 5x plus 2 is equal to 3 to the third power. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. Okay, now it becomes a two-step equation. Subtract 2 from both sides. 5x is equal to 25. The last step, divide by 5, and x is equal to 5. Okay, now, do we have constraints? Think deeper. The square root will have constraints because we cannot take the square root of a negative number. Will the cubed root have that same constraint? No. Why? Negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 is equal to negative 1. So, the cubed root of negative 1 would equal negative 1. When you're multiplying and you have three numbers, even if they're all negative, you can end up with a negative response. So hopefully you were able to get that. If not, stop the video, pause, go back it up, and think about the why of it. For the next one, we need to do that cross multiplication. So 3x minus 2, that quantity, times 2, that's your diagonals, equals x plus 2 times 5, that's your other diagonals. Now, algebra 1, distribute. 2 times 3x is 6x, minus 2 times 2 is 4, is equal to 5 times x is 5x, plus 5 times 2 is 10. Now solve. Okay, I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. I want to work with positive exponents, positive coefficients if I can. 6x minus 5x is x, minus 4 is equal to 10. Last step, add 4 to both sides. X is equal to 14. Do we have restrictions? Yeah, in this case we do. because we're doing division and we know we cannot divide by 0 is correct. So for your constraint, x plus 2 cannot be equal to 0. X cannot be equal to negative 2. We always look at our denominator. We can't have 0 down there, and that is what gives us our constraint. Okay, so for square or cubed root equations, first you'll all isolate the root. Then you'll square or cube to get rid of the root. Of course, if it was a fifth root, we'd have to take it to the fifth power to get rid of it. We're not going to go into that high a depth. So, square or cube, get rid of that root. Solve, state your constraints. For your cube roots, there are none. For your square roots, remember, the square root of a has got to be greater than or equal to 0. So as I'm looking at this, cube root, that means I have to cube it. Okay, everything underneath comes out. 2x minus 5 is equal to 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. How are we going to solve? Add 5 to both sides. 2x is equal to 69. Divide both sides by 2. And x is equal to 69 halves, which is equal to 34.5, which is also equal to 34 and 1 half. All of these would be the correct answer to the problem. Normally, we'll see it either as an improper fraction or as a decimal, but we might also see it as a compound number. Restrictions? For cube roots, there's none. So if we wanted to, we could state no restrictions, but we don't have to. Okay, let's look at the next one. The square root of 3x minus 1 is equal to negative 8. How do we get started? If you set square both sides, you are wrong. This is a negative. There is no solution. Because the square root of negative x is imaginary. But we do know how to find it, when we're doing our quadratic formula. We work with it there, but we usually will not work with it if we're looking for a solution. So let's go to the next one. What do I do? Square both sides. 3x plus 15 is equal to x squared. Now what do I do? Okay, I want to get it set up equal to 0 so I can solve. So I'll subtract 3x. I will subtract 15. Zero is equal to x squared minus 3x minus 15. Okay, now what? Well, what are the factors of 15 that when I subtract them, I get 3? One's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. What are my factors of 15 that when I subtract them, I get 3? Well, if you say 3 times 5, you're right, but 5 minus 3 is not 3. So this means we're going to have to use the quadratic formula. A equals 1, B equals negative 3, C equals negative 15. So our discriminant, negative 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 15. Our discriminant is equal to, okay, what is 3 squared times negative 4 minus 4 times 1 times negative 15, we get 69. Okay, we know that 69 is not a perfect square. We know that the factors of 69 are 3 and 3 times 13, so there's no common factors there. So what we're going to do is to take the square root of 69. That's simplified, we can't do any more. Remember the quadratic formula, the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all of it divided by 2a. Here's my discriminant, the opposite of b. The opposite of b, the opposite of negative 3 is to have a positive 3. Plus or minus square root of 69 all over 2 times 1. Okay, I can't simplify anymore, so this is 3 plus or minus the square root of 69 divided by 2. Are there constraints? Well, yeah, there are. We know that 3x plus 15 cannot be equal to 0. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, I am going to subtract 15 and divide by 3. Negative 15 divided by 3 is negative 5, and we are now done. So it isn't always an easy process to find the answer. We have to remember everything we've been taught. In this case, we went back to the quadratic formula because we didn't have any numbers we could use. Let's see if that happens with the next one. Pause the video and see if you can find the answer. Okay, square both sides. 9x minus 18 will equal x squared. Set it up equal to 0. Subtract 9x, add 18. 0 is equal to x squared minus 9x plus 18. Factors of 18 that when I add them together I get 9. Both of them are negative. What are my factors of 18? When I add them together I get 9. Both of them are negative. 1 times 18 is 18. 18 minus 1 is not 9. 2 times 9 is 18. 9 minus 2 is not 9. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 plus 6 is 9. So it's x times 3 and x times 6. Factors of 18 that add up to 9, both of them are negative. I kind of worded it wrong when I was trying to subtract. Sorry about that. So this means I've got x minus 3 times x minus 6 is equal to 0. X is equal to 3 or 6. Do I have constraints? Yeah, because it's a square root. Okay, 9x minus 18 cannot be equal to 0. X cannot be equal to, I have to add 18 and divide by 9. 18 divided by 9 is 2, and I'm done. So there's a multitude of ways that you end up solving. You have to learn to be very comfortable doing all kinds of equations with numbers. Remember, it all falls back to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. We're doing a lot of factoring, and we're using the quadratic formula. So you know you're successful when you can solve any rational equation and state the constraints or restrictions. These are rational equations, specifically square root and cubed root.